Now we'll do the solubility of salts in qualitative analysis. It'll give you a very wide spectrum in the solubility aspect of various salts. Now understand, if someone asks you and someone has given you nitrates or nitrites, then understand that all nitrates and nitrites are soluble in water. All metal salts are soluble in water. If I'm talking about acetate, right? See, all metal acetates are soluble in water. Getting it? Now, chlorides, right? Now, if I'm talking about chlorides here, now except for three, like silver chloride, mercurous chloride, not mercuric, mercurous chloride, lead chloride, PbCl2 has a very unique feature that PbCl2 is precipitate in a cold water, but in hot water it becomes soluble. So the water become hot. So in hot water it becomes soluble. So this is again a particular area where they ask you these tricky questions, right? Now again, bromides, all all bromides are again water soluble except all these three cations which are given to you in the earlier case of chloride. Those AgBr, PbBr2 and Hg2Br2. Again, they are what is that? Precipitate. Now, in case of iodides, apart from above one, there are extra iodides which are like lead iodide, which is yellow in color, Hgi2. It is Hg2Y2 and Agi. They are insoluble. Apart from that, everything is soluble. Now, in case of sulfates, almost all sulfates are soluble in water except sulfates of alkaline earth metal like calcium, strontium, barium. Then you have your lead sulfate, mercuric sulfate, and silver sulfate. Getting it, they're insoluble in water. Now, sulfide again, uh, most of the sulfides are insoluble in water except group 1, group 2, and ammonium sulfide. Carbonates all are insoluble except group 1 carbonates and ammonium carbonate. Phosphate all are water insoluble except group 1 phosphate and ammonium phosphate. Hydroxide all are water insoluble except group 1 hydroxides, as well as the ongoing down the alkaline earth metal, right? Barium hydroxide, strontium hydroxide, calcium hydroxide. Getting it? Did you get that? Huh. By the way, the solubility of barium hydroxide, strontium hydroxide, and calcium hydroxide is low. On going down the group, the solubility increases, right? Anyways, this is all about the solubility of salt. So we have done till now that what salt will liberate which gas, how to predict the product of a particular decomposition reaction, which salts are soluble, which salts are not soluble, and it's just a wide spectrum thing. Now I'll just request you guys, because it gives you an entire idea of inorganic chemistry regarding the solubility of salts. This section should be noted down properly in your notebook. Getting it? Yeah. Now we'll have a quick revision. All nitrate nitrites are soluble. All metal acetates are soluble. Chlorides, silver, mercurous, and your lead, they are insoluble. Lead becomes soluble in your hot water. Bromide, again these three elements. Iodide, apart from that, you have your HgI2 and PbI2, right? And I told you PbI2 is yellow in color. Now sulfates, all sulfates are soluble except the alkaline earth metal one and lead, silver, and your what is that, mercury. Now sulfides, they are insoluble except this group 1, group 2, and ammonium sulfide. Carbonates again, every damn carbonate is insoluble except group 1 carbonate, ammonium carbonate. Phosphate, the same case as with carbonate. And for hydroxide, again the same case, but in this case we are including the heavier members of alkaline earth metal. They are also soluble. Getting it? Okay, we'll move ahead now. Right now, next session is now the gases which are getting evolved in or during decomposition or by adding any reagent, right? Now I'm just focusing on the gas. Now what is the nature of the gas? Suppose a gas is coming out by looking at the gas or by smelling the gas. You can predict that which kind of anion or cation should be there present inside the salt. Not cation per se, anion. The anion produces the gas over there. Okay. Anyways, आई हैव कलरलेस एंड odorless gases जो निकलता है मतलब सॉल्ट में से. ऑक्सीजन गैस इज देयर, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, सल्फर डाइऑक्साइड एंड नाइट्रोजन. नाउ understand one thing, oxygen obviously you cannot see oxygen, it doesn't have any smell also, right? Now it rekindles a glowing splinter मतलब it reburn the particular flame which is just got stopped. Gas turns lime water milky. You know what? If you put that thing in calcium hydroxide, these two gases, right? Now, what they form a milky or turbid nature. Why? Because of the formation of calcium carbonate and calcium sulfide. Okay. Then again, one more thing. If SO2 is there, no, it also turns your Cr2O72 minus 2, your green color substance. Getting it? These two things. Sulfur dioxide, not carbon dioxide. So again, both sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide produces turbidness in your calcium hydroxide solution. Sulfur dioxide has a difference with carbon dioxide because it converts K2Cr2O7 into a green color. So you can find out that which gas is sulfur dioxide, which gas is carbon dioxide. Getting it? Now obviously the source will be oxalates or sulfates, right? Now nitrogen gas, again it is colorless and odorless, so you cannot actually predict. Nitrogen gas is very stable. Nitrogen is very unreactive. It is used to produce inert atmosphere in metallurgical processes. Why it is inert? Why? Because the triple bond energy of this nitrogen molecule is so damn high, it is very difficult to break this molecule into nitrogen atom and make this molecule to react. Is very 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 difficult, right? Now colorless and a gas which has smell, right? Now pungent smell gas which turns red litmus blue, that means the gas is basic. So obviously instead of pungent it should be penetrative smell. When you smell any ammonium salt, right, it's ammonia only. If you smell any ammonium salt, no, it directly hits your brain. It's so damn penetrative, right? Now understand that uh, ammonium salt or ammonia gas is like having a pungent and its basic character. And you know what? This mercurous nitrate paper will get turned black with the help of this ammonia, in which compound the mercurous nitrate will get decomposed to form mercury. So it is a characteristics of ammonia gas. So this is a reaction by which ammonia gas is produced. I already told you when ammonium ion is forming a bond with non-oxidizing anion, then what will happen on heating only? It just liberate ammonia gas, right? Now, burning smell of sulfur. That is, I'm talking about sulfur dioxide gas. When a sulfur dioxide gas produces, right, it gives a very burning sulfur smell. It's like if you have ever witnessed burning of tire, right? So it gives a very burning type of smell, right? So that is sulfur dioxide. Now it's same as sulfur dioxide. It turns, I told you, right, it turns acidified K2Cr2O7 paper green, that is SO2. Now how it produced, just decompose it, you'll get it. Now pungent smell, white fumes with ammonia. Pungent smell, again it is HCl gas. HCl gas with ammonia will produce NH4Cl, which is white fumes. I'll just write it down over there. Ammonia gas, when it forms comes in contact with HCl, I'll get NH4Cl white fumes. So it produces white fumes. As it is acidic, obviously it turns your blue litmus to red, right? Now, smell of rotten eggs, rotten gas, rotten eggs. That is very bad gas. That is hydrogen sulfide, highly inflammable also. So when you deal with hydrogen sulfide, you have to just make sure that the in the vicinity, right, there should not be any burning takes place, or there should not be any fire source or any fire over there. So smell of rotten egg it turns acetate paper black. Obviously, lead acetate formation takes place when you have lead acetate paper. So lead sulfide forms. So PBS is black in color, and obviously rotten egg smell. That means H2S gas. Whenever you had a word of rotten egg or very bad smell, then you'll come to this gas. You should be click. You should get a click on your brain. Your brain that okay, H2S gas is coming out. So fine, these are the colorless gas, but they do have smell. Now do have colored gas. You can find out they have a particular color. For example, nitrogen dioxide is a brown color thing. Now nitrogen dioxide turns starch iodide paper blue. Why? Because nitrogen dioxide oxidizes I minus, that is Ki, to iodine, and iodine in the presence of starch, you know, that is blue black color. It forms an inclusion compound, so I'll get a blue color. Similarly, what we'll do here, reddish brown Br2. So I have a color reddish brown Br2. It again turns starch paper yellow because bromine instead of iodine with starch produce yellow color. Inclusion compound have a yellow color thing, and it turns starch iodide paper blue again. Br minus, Br2 when reacts with I minus, again it get reduced and iodine get oxidized. Again iodine in the presence of starch become blue black. That is why it's written like this. Now, greenish yellow color, that is chlorine. It bleaches moist litmus paper, that is correct. Bleaches indigo solution. Turns starch iodine paper blue again. Why? Because this iodide will be reactive with chlorine. I'll get Cl minus and iodine. This iodine again form blue black color. Getting it? And these are the processes by which you are producing chlorine gas. I guess we have done with the solubility and the nature of gases which is coming out. And with the help of this study, like the inference test of generally anions is predicted. Okay, fine. We'll talk about Bunsen flame. Now a very important question came from in mains, JE mains, regarding this particular aspect. They have asked about that, tell me the region which is like having the highest temperature, the to the hottest portion of the flame. That is, he's talking about the point B, right? I'll do one thing. I'll just enlarge this video, enlarge this image. Now understand, this is a particular flame. Getting it? Now if you see a flame, there are two region. One is like bluish region, there is like yellow region. Getting it? Now you must be amazed that there are different temperature, that there is different degree of hotness. Now this is the upper, see, the main thing is this is a flame where there will be large amount of supply of oxygen and complete combustion takes place. So here it is complete burning taking place, and this is the region where it is partial burning. So it will have a source of carbon in it. Getting it? Now listen, this is luminance zone. See, this ABD cone is consisting of largely unburned gases. So gas is not burned completely over there. This is the luminous tip D. Getting it is a luminous tip, and this is another mantle ACD BD. So there are two parts of flame. One is like dark part, black thing will be there, blue thing will be there. So the bluish region, this is a yellowish region. First and foremost thing. Now here complete burning and complete oxidation takes place. In the lower thing there will be low burning, and at the point D, right, understand that at this point D there will be large than this particular thing, the upper reducing zone, there will be large amount of carbon, unburned carbon. And you know what, the hottest portion of the flame will be at a suppose this distance of the flame is D. Generally I'm talking about. Now this portion will be D by 3. So if the flame length is D, at least at approximately at 1 by 3rd distance, I'll have a hottest portion of the flame. And between these two regions, the distance here, this distance from this reducing flame and oxidizing flame will be exactly equal. So this distance is exactly equal. I'm talking about this distance of the center. This point is actually midpoint of these two flames. So it is exactly equidistant from that. Getting it? Now understand one thing. Lower oxidizing zone. Generally, what we are doing here, there will be large amount of burning takes place inside this ADBC flame. So it is an oxidizing flame, and ADB, it is reducing flame. Now understand that lower oxidizing zone means there is a zone where I can perform borax bead test in oxidizing flame. In oxidizing flame. And lowest lower reducing zone means here I can perform borax bead test in reducing flame. That is a reducing flame. Okay. Now the lower temperature zone A. This is the lower temperature zone A, and upper reducing zone E. This is the topmost region where the reduction can takes place. This region. So this is the flame, right? Now, generally people think that this is the hottest part. Upper oxidizing zone will be hottest part. No, 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 it's not hottest part. Rather, hottest portion of the flame is this, and it's very important. A category of flame is given to you. Okay, I'll just read down the main points of that particular flame, right? So that the overall coverage will be there. An inner blue cone ADB consists of largely of unburned gases. ADB, there will be a lot of unburned gases. Obviously, this complete combustion is not taking place because the oxygen supply is not adequate over there. A luminous tip at D. This is only visible when the air holes are slightly closed. Having this combustion in the presence of a container, closed container, right? Then you can see a luminous tip at the D, and this is the topmost point of the reducing flame. The outer mantle A, B, C, D. He's talking about A, B, C, D, in which complete combustion of gas takes place. One second. A outer mantle A D B C. This one. He's talking about this one. This is the outer mantle where the complete combustion takes place. Here, incomplete combustion takes place. The inner mantle. The lowest temperature is in the base of flame A. This is used for only testing only volatile substances. See, the thing is, there are a lot of organic substances or volatile substances which does not require very high temperature, because at very high temperature, very high heat, they become they sublime. So I don't want that. If I don't want that, obviously I'll choose the zone A for testing those highly volatile species. This is for highly volatile species. Getting it? Now, the hottest part of the flame is a fusion zone at B. It lies about one third of the distance height of the flame and approximately equidistant from the outside and inside of the mantle. See, the thing I just told you, the outside of the mantle is this, inside of the mantle is this, exactly equidistant from that. This is the highest region where it has highest temperature. The lower oxidizing zone C is situated on the outer border of B, a lower oxidizing zone. So it is like the lowest, most oxidizing zone. This one is existing over here. Again, I told you in order to perform a test, borax bead test in oxidizing flame, I'll use this point. Lower oxidizing zone, outermost border of B, which may be used for the oxidation of substances dissolved in borax bead test. I just told you, oxidative flame. The upper oxidizing zone D consists of non-luminous tip of the flame. Here a large excess of oxygen is present and the flame is not so hot as in C. This is a lower oxidizing zone. Here the temperature is high. Upper oxidizing zone where the temperature is low. So I'll be using higher temperature to perform the experiment, the oxidation experiment. What exactly we'll do in borax bead test, whenever a metal is entrapped in a bead, I'm just bringing it to an oxidizing flame such that the oxidation of metal takes place, and then it'll combine with the borax to produce a characteristics bead, the oxidizing flame. And the low what is that Lower oxidizing zone, lower reducing zone. See, there will be large amount of carbon content, right? With because incomplete combustion takes place in this zone F. When I'm talking about zone F right now, this zone, right? In this particular zone, zone F is the lower reducing zone where the temperature will be higher enough, and here you have to do borax bead test or microcosmic test uh, at higher temperature but in reducing flame. Why? Because there will be a lot of carbon content which can reduce the oxidation state of oxides, right? Now that's all about the flame. So I guess you understood the kind of how the flame works over there. What is the region? You come to know that the higher temperature region will be below, lower temperature region will be above. uh, Inside the flame there will be region ABD where incomplete combustion takes place. The outermost mantle, ADBC, where the complete combustion takes place, right? There will be a lot of oxygen outside. So that's for the flame, right? We'll move ahead for various other physical examination of the salts, right?